This story is about a little schoolgirl who tragically dies in a bus accident with a group of people and becomes stuck in the afterlife. At the start, we meet Kim, a tired corporate worker fed up with his monotonous routine. One evening, as he gets off the bus at his stop, he notices a strange woman in a white dress sitting alone. He feels uneasy but decides to ignore her and moves on. Later, another bus brings Kim back to the station. Once again, he sees the woman in white but pays her no attention. However, this time he hears an odd tapping sound, almost as if it's trying to get his attention. Despite the unease, he brushes it off and walks away. When the bus arrives a third time, Kim steps off and finally approaches the woman. Curiously, he asks if she needs help. The woman, who seems lost and disoriented, says she has misplaced her phone and doesn't know where she is. Kim offers to help and pulls out his phone, only to find its screen mysteriously cracked. He nervously asks for her phone number to locate her device, but her response unsettles him. She cryptically says that he already knows her. This leaves Kim puzzled and uneasy. As she falls silent, he grows nervous and hurriedly leaves her behind. Yet again, the bus arrives and Kim steps off. This time, he instinctively covers the woman with his umbrella, concerned that she has been waiting in the rain. The woman remarks, almost eerily, that Kim has already seen her sitting there for the past 3 days. His memory begins to align with her words, making him question his reality. The woman claims she feels unwell and Kim, worried about her condition, invites her to rest at his apartment. She agrees and they head to his place. When they arrive, Kim tries to turn on the lights, but she abruptly stops him and steps into the darkened room. Something about her presence feels off, and Kim is left standing there, unsure of what he's gotten himself into. At the school, a strange girl is seen standing outside, watching a student named Ju. Back in the classroom, Ju's friends return and start gossiping. Bobe tries to scare everyone, claiming that a ghost girl visits the school daily, which is why there's always an empty seat in the classroom. Gayul, unimpressed, dismisses her as bluffing, saying ghosts aren't real. Bobe insists that many students have seen the girl and even taken pictures, but Gayul and Yu remain skeptical, refusing to believe her fake stories. Meanwhile, a peculiar, drenched woman named Ms. Park visits a light shop. She wanders through the store, drawn to a particular bulb. As she reaches out to touch it, the shop owner urgently tells her to leave. Ms. Park steps back and quietly exits. As it rains, the school kids have fun on their way home, but Bobe can't resist telling another ghost story. This time, she talks about a dark alley where a man's ghost is said to wander aimlessly. Gayul, annoyed, tells her to stop, but Bobe claims to have seen the ghost herself and runs ahead to spook her friends. However, Ju, who has errands to run, doesn't join the others and ends up entering the dark alley alone. As she ventures deeper, she hears footsteps behind her. Terrified, she runs until she reaches the light shop. There, she meets Jung, the shop owner, and it becomes clear they know each other well. Jung offers her candies. She finds it pretty odd that Jung wears sunglasses inside the shop, and she jokingly suggests he should dim the lights in his shop. However, Jung says that he cannot turn them off even if he tries. Ju admits she appreciates the brightness, as it gives her the courage to cross the dark alley where she claims to have seen the ghost of a man. Jung seems startled by her comment. Initially, he dismisses it as just another ghost story, but when Ju insists she saw a man following her, his expression changes. Intrigued, he reveals a secret. Ju is special, able to see ghostly spirits just like him. He warns her, though, that spirits often appear indistinguishable from humans. To differentiate them, she must observe closely and, no matter what, pretend she doesn't see them. Ju, curious about Jung's warning, asks what she should do if she's already interacted with a ghost. Jung calmly advises her to act normal and walk away, never showing fear. As he glances at his reflection on the table, then he hands Ju a torchlight, saying it might help her fight the darkness. Meanwhile, at Kim's apartment, he offers the mysterious woman a towel to dry herself. However, her unsettling demeanor begins to make him uneasy, and as he notices her nails, he becomes frightened. The tension escalates when she opens her bag, pulling out a strange set of tools and moving toward him with an ominous air. Later, when Ju returns home to the same building where Kim lives, or used to live, she encounters the woman and greets her politely. The woman abruptly freezes, her expression shifting as she realizes that Ju can see her too. Elsewhere, a woman named Sunhae, seeking a quiet life, meets with a broker to view a villa situated in the dark alley. Though the broker tries hard to sell her the property, Sunhae becomes suspicious upon finding a locked room. The broker explains it's unfinished and inaccessible for now. Despite her reservations, the villa's surprisingly low price convinces her to move in. Sunhae spends her first day doing chores and settling in. Later, while trying to work on her writing, she becomes annoyed by a boy singing loudly outside. The boy, Jiwoong, is crossing the dark alley when he feels an eerie presence. Scared, he begins to run, singing louder to distract himself. Upon reaching the light shop, he finally feels safe. Back at the villa, Sun-hye falls asleep while working, but something strange occurs. The lights flicker and go out. A shadowy figure of a woman appears outside her front door, silently watching. The following night, Jiwoong is even more terrified as the rain makes the dark alley feel even more ominous. Meanwhile, in the villa, Sun-hye dries her hair when she hears the front door creak open. She brushes it off, assuming it's the wind, and returns to her laptop. But her irritation grows as she hears the schoolboy singing again outside. Suddenly, the lights in her home cut out, plunging her into darkness as an unsettling tension fills the air. Sun-hye notices light coming from the locked room in her villa. Unable to contain her curiosity, she cautiously investigates. Inside, she finds a glowing light bulb and switches it off. Right then, she sees Jiwoong, the boy who had been singing in the street. Gathering her courage, she firmly tells him not to sing at night. Startled, Jiwoong becomes scared and quickly runs away. Meanwhile, at the school, class ends and everyone leaves except Yu, who stays behind, dozing at her desk. Elsewhere, Ju stands at the edge of the dark alley, holding the torchlight Jung had given her. As she ventures deeper into the alley, she encounters Miss Park standing barefoot in the rain. Instead of running away, Ju approaches her and shares her umbrella. The woman speaks in a strange, eerie voice, asking Ju where she's headed. Ju replies that she's going to the light shop, and Miss Park begins walking alongside her. However, Ju soon notices something terrifying. Ms. Park's hair starts to grow unnaturally long, and her height increases with every step. Remembering Jung's advice to avoid eye contact with ghosts, Ju nervously quickens her pace. When she glances back, Ms. Park suddenly starts running toward her in an unsettling, jerky manner. Panicked, Ju screams for help. Just then, Jung appears and commands her to run. As Ju flees, Jung removes his sunglasses, and Ms. Park begins to retreat, walking backward into the darkness. Back at school, Yu wakes up from her nap and immediately senses something off. She sees a strange girl sitting on the usually empty bench. The girl's eerie voice cuts through the silence as she claims to have seen the ghost girl, sending shivers down Yu's spine. Elsewhere, Jiwoong, trying to make his way home through the dark alley, encounters the white dress woman. Concerned for her, he shares his umbrella. As they walk together, the woman asks if he's alone. Nervously, Jiwoong nods, unaware of the danger that lies ahead. In the villa, Sun-hye begins hearing unsettling noises and witnessing strange, inexplicable events. Meanwhile, Jiwoong, still walking with the white dress woman, tells her about the time he saw a lady with a bizarre shadow standing behind her. Intrigued, the white dress woman decides to enter the villa. Jiwoong tries to stop her but notices her hands are oddly shaped. Panic sets in as he realizes his leg is turning backward unnaturally. Jiwoong gathers his strength and he flees in terror. Inside, Sun-hye comes to the horrifying realization that she has been living with a ghost in the villa. Attempting to escape, she discovers she's trapped, just like Jiwoong, unable to leave the dark alley no matter how hard he tries. Later, the white dress woman visits the light shop, searching for something only Jung can provide. While she's there, a man named Detective Sang enters, asking Jung if he's seen a strange man running through the streets. Jung denies seeing anyone. As the white dress woman tries to leave, Sang notices blood drops and questions her. She insists she isn't hurt and, brushing off further concern, claims to be in a hurry. Sang hands her his raincoat, and she silently exits the shop. Elsewhere, Ju realizes she forgot to buy a light bulb from the shop and heads back. On her way, she passes the white dress woman but doesn't stop. When Ju arrives, Jung anxiously tells her to return home safely. Sang becomes concerned with the unusual number of midnight visitors. He is now curious about the shop, and begins asking Jung why it attracts so many people late at night. Jung, in turn, questions Sang's reasons for being in the dark alley at such a time. Meanwhile, at the ICU, Kwon, a staff member, heads to the 8th floor and encounters a strange man named Sung in a bus driver uniform. He says he's visiting a relative in the ICU, though Kwon knows the floor is off-limit. Sung asks if critically ill patients can wake up, and Kwon, suppressing her emotions, replies that it depends on their will to live. This deeply affects Sung, who becomes sorrowful. Suddenly, water begins to pool around him, flowing unnaturally toward Kwon. The elevator starts filling with water as Sung cries uncontrollably. Just as Kwon feels she might drown, the elevator reaches the 8th floor, and the doors open. She finds herself perfectly dry, and Sung is gone without a trace. Back at the light shop, Sang claims to be chasing after a strange man and describes that he has unusual eyes that change under bright light. As he speaks, Sang's own eyes begin to shift. Jung notices but pretends not to, insisting he hasn't seen anyone matching Sang's description. Before Sang leaves, Jung urges him to stay a while, suggesting the rain might bring the person Sang is searching for to the shop. Meanwhile, Ju heads home and once again meets the white dress woman. The woman asks if Ju can see her, and Ju nervously says yes. The white dress woman expresses surprise, mentioning how often she visits the light shop to buy bulbs. Ju explains that her mother frequently sends her on errands before moving past the woman. Further down the road, Ju encounters a strange man by name Kong, who calls out to her. He asks if she has seen a dog that keeps barking and preventing him from sleeping. Sensing his odd behavior, Ju remembers Jung's advice to avoid strangers acting abnormally. She looks at his face briefly, grows scared, and hurries back to her apartment building, her heart pounding with fear. The story takes a haunting turn as we learn that the people trapped in the dark alley, Sun Hei, the schoolboy Ji-woong, the barking dog man Kim, and Detective Sang, are all patients in the ICU. Each of them hovers between life and death, their spirits lost in the eerie world of the alley. Ju returns home, exhausted and unsettled. She apologizes to her mother for not bringing the light bulb and promises to get it next time. Strangely, her mother, who appears silent and distant, is already dead, lying in a hospital's mortuary. As Ju sleeps, the white dress woman peeks into her apartment, as she feels uneasy that both of them remember each other, and Kim doesn't remember her. Then we dive into Kim's story in a flashback. Kim, a weary man searching for meaning, is on his way to meet Ji-young, the love of his life. As he texts her, expressing his excitement and longing, Ji-young sits in her apartment, crying. She is packing her belongings, preparing to leave Kim. A letter reveals the heartbreaking truth. Kim's mother asked her to leave Kim for his happiness, and Ji-young, torn between love and loyalty, has decided to comply. Kim, oblivious to Ji-young's turmoil, is filled with hope. Today, he plans to propose to her. As he rides the metro, while exiting the station, he realizes he has forgotten the bouquet of flowers he bought for her. Disappointed but undeterred, he exits the metro and heads to the bus station. The bus arrives and Kim boards, looking forward to meeting Ji-young. At the next stop, schoolboy Ji-woong gets on. The driver, Sung, notices issues with the bus engine and its brakes, but decides to continue the journey. Meanwhile, Sun Hei and Ms. Park are arguing on the street. Sun Hei is upset because Ms. Park is afraid to make their relationship public, worried about societal judgment and their age difference. Sun Hei insists their love is nothing to hide. As the bus arrives, they both get on despite their tension. At the next stop, Ju waits with her mother for the bus. Initially, Sung doesn't stop because of the faulty engine, but Ju persuades him to let them on. While crossing a bridge, the bus loses a tire and crashes into an upcoming truck, causing it to flip. At the same time, Ji-young is on her way to meet Kim. From a distance, she witnesses the bus falling off the bridge. Horrified, she tries calling Kim, but the call doesn't connect. Panicked, she dials emergency services, but she is unable to speak because of her disability. Ji-young runs toward the bridge, desperate to help. Underwater, Kim and the other passengers are trapped, unconscious or struggling for air. Rescuers arrive and rush them to the hospital, where doctors work tirelessly to save lives. Ji-young arrives at the hospital in a state of shock, unable to process the chaos around her. The doctors inform Sung's wife that he did not survive the crash. Ji-woong, Ju, and Sun Hei are in critical condition but still alive. Tragically, Ms. Park couldn't be saved and passed away, leaving Sun Hei's love story unresolved. This tragic event intertwines their lives, setting the stage for their spirits to wander between life and death, bound by their unresolved emotions and unfinished stories. A member of the rescue team finds Kim's phone still functioning and hands it over to his parent. Meanwhile, Ji-young sits outside the hospital, distraught. She calls Kim's phone, but Kim's mother rejects the call and sends a harsh message, blaming Ji-young for Kim's death. The message leaves Ji-young feeling deeply guilty and heartbroken. Later, Kim's father confronts his wife, urging her to apologize to Ji-young for her cruel words. However, Kim's mother refuses, claiming it's pointless since Ji-young is deaf. She admits she had always disapproved of Kim dating her. Unable to ignore Ji-young's pain, Kim's father takes the phone to text her. However, just as he's about to apologize, a chilling message arrives from Ji-young, saying she plans to end her life to reunite with Kim in the afterlife. Alarmed, he quickly texts back to reveal that Kim is still alive. Ji-young reads the message but is unable to stop her tragic plan. After Ji-young's death, filled with regret, her soul begins waiting every night at the station where she used to meet Kim each morning when she was alive. In the shadows, she relives their memories, the moments of love and joy they shared. Overcome with desperation, she tries to speak and calls Kim's name for the first time, confessing her love to him. As the bus arrives once again, the passengers step out, and Kim emerges among them. But when he doesn't recognize her, Ji-young is devastated. She realizes she must act quickly to reunite with him before her cremation. In a desperate attempt, she sews Kim's soul to her own with an invisible thread. Meanwhile, Ju returns to her apartment building. Suddenly, a man enters the elevator with her. His appearance is unsettling, and despite her fear, Ju studies his reflection, noticing he looks injured. However, she doesn't recognize him. When they reach her floor, she hurries to her apartment, but the man follows, confused and disoriented. Suddenly he collapses at his door, startling Ju. Ji-young then arrives in a hurry, warning Ju to stay out of it. Ju quickly gets inside her apartment and, from behind her closed door, Ju hears rattling noises and cautiously opens it to see what Ji-young is doing. Before she can investigate further, her mother pulls her back inside, insisting she stay quiet. Shocked, as Ji-young peeks inside Ju's apartment, she realizes mother and daughter remember each other. Ji-young become unable to understand why Kim has forgotten her. Ju's mother, trying to distract her, asks if she went to the light shop to get the light. However, Ju becomes frustrated, and refuses to go back to the dark alley to buy them, claiming she doesn't need them anyway. Ji-young roams the dark alleys, encountering wandering spirits, including Sung and Detective Sang. Sang, puzzled by his surroundings, lights a cigarette with his lighter. Troubled by the perpetual darkness, he decides to visit the mysterious light shop again for answers. Inside, he confronts Jung, the shopkeeper, expressing his confusion about why the sun never rises in this place and questions its true nature. Jung hesitates, admitting he doesn't fully understand it himself. As Sang scrutinizes Jung and their eyes meet, Sang suddenly loses his sight, plunging into a flashback. In the flashback, Jung and his young daughter are shown trapped under the rubble of a collapsed building. As his daughter cries out in pain, Jung, struggling through the debris, sets out to seek help. He stumbles upon the light shop nestled in the dark alley. He rushes inside, pleading with the shop's elderly woman to save his daughter. However, the woman, calm and indifferent, dismisses his cries, telling him to forget about his daughter. Her apathy enrages Jung, and in desperation, he starts to cry loudly and begs the old lady to help his daughter. Yu Hui, however, the lady ignores him. In his frustration, he tries to smash one of the lamps in the shop. Before he can act, the woman's piercing gaze freezes him in place. Moving closer, she takes the lamp from his grasp and warns him that each lamp represents a life. Her words make Jung pause. Slowly, the realization dawns on him. He was the unfortunate one who perished in the disaster, not his daughter. And the light shop, he understands, is no ordinary place. It is a realm where lives are preserved and fates decided, a liminal space that transcends the living world. Jung, curious about why he was brought to this place, confronts the old lady. She explains that it's because of his relentless attempts to alter reality. She urges him to accept the truth, promising he'll be freed from this eternal torment if he does. However, Jung is more concerned about his daughter. He pleads with the old lady to give him her light, explaining that his daughter is trapped under the rubble of fallen concrete. The old lady refuses, stating that the light is bound by the will of its bearer, and if his daughter wants to live, she must find it herself. Desperate, Jung offers to do anything in exchange for her light. Intrigued by his resolve, the old lady considers his proposal. Finally, she agrees to trade, but at a price. Jung becomes the new owner of the light shop, trapped there for eternity in exchange for his daughter's life. Meanwhile, Detective Sang interrogates Jung, demanding to know the secrets of this mysterious place. Calmly, Jung reveals that the light shop serves as a haven for those who lost their lives to tragic accidents or cannot move on from their death. However, Jung points out that Sang is different. He is still alive, caught in the liminal space between life and death. Elsewhere, Ju's mother tries to convince her daughter to visit the light shop, but Ju, angry and defiant, refuses. Left with no choice, her mother leaves. At the same time, Ms. Park approaches Sunhae, urging her to leave the villa and find the light shop. In another part of this realm, Sung, the bus driver who perished in an accident, discovers Ji-woong, a schoolboy lying immobilized on the ground. Sung offers to help him escape, but Ji-woong, paralyzed by fear, insists that the dark alley is endless and there's no way out. Undeterred, Sung persists, vowing to guide him to safety. Back with Detective Sang, his disbelief in the afterlife remains strong. Yet Jung assures him that the truth stands, regardless of belief. As Sang touches his love light bulb lighter, a scene unfolds in the ICU. Doctors notice his vitals improving, and Kwon shouts his name. Moments later, Sang opens his eyes, successfully escaping the afterlife. Meanwhile, Kong, frustrated by the dog's incessant barking, chases after it. When he catches up, he notices a branch piercing the dog's stomach. This sight triggers a memory. Kong recalls his accident and how the dog tried to save him but died in the process. The dog barks, urging Kong to follow. As Kong runs after it, they reach a lighthouse. Inside, the dog barks at Jung to stay silent. Following his instincts, Kong notices a peculiar bulb and, driven by curiosity, touches it to escape the afterlife. Meanwhile, Sung, the bus driver, carries Ji-woong on his back toward the light shop. As they talk, Ji-woong reveals that he's not the only one stuck in this place. He saw a woman inside the villa who couldn't find a way out. Concerned but determined, Sung focuses on getting Ji-woong to the light shop, marching steadily forward. After walking for some time, they finally arrive near the shop. Gently setting Ji-woong down, Sung insists that he must enter the light shop and find his light to escape this place. Ji-woong hesitates, admitting he's passed by the shop countless times but never dared to go inside. Sung persists, urging him to take this chance. As Ji-woong slowly moves toward the shop, Sung apologizes for the pain and suffering he caused through his own recklessness. Inside the shop, Ji-woong looks around nervously. Jung, intrigued, comments that he has seen Ji-woong pass by the shop before. When Ji-woong explains he's looking for his light, Jung remains silent for a moment before offering a subtle hint. Taking the clue, Ji-woong notices a small flickering bulb in the corner. He moves toward it and touches it, causing the bulb to shine brightly. As the light envelopes him, Jung softly wishes that Ji-woong never returns to this place, hoping he'll live a safe and happy life. Meanwhile, Kim's lover, Ji-young, is furious and heartbroken that Kim doesn't remember her like the other spirits. She storms onto the bus where Kim resides and confronts him, demanding to know why he doesn't recognize her. "Do you even love me?" she cries. Kim, bewildered, cannot understand why a stranger is clinging to him so desperately. Ji-young, frustrated, tells him there's little time left and urges him to remember. She reveals a brutal injury on his stomach, shocking Kim into silence. Desperate to rekindle his memory, Ji-young takes him back to their home. There, Kim begins to recall fragments of their past and apologizes for failing to recognize her sooner. However, Ji-young's time is running out. Her cremation is about to take place. At the mortuary, the mortician discovers the refrigerator door mysteriously locked, as though Ji-young's spirit is resisting the inevitable. Meanwhile, Sung arrives outside the villa, determined to save Sun-hae before his time runs out. There, he encounters Ms. Park, who realizes Sung also perished in the bus accident. Overwhelmed with guilt, Sung apologizes to Ms. Park, admitting he ignored the faulty brakes that could have been repaired. Though angry, Ms. Park acknowledges that their shared fate was part of a cruel misfortune. They were all on that bus together. Now resolute, Sung decides to dedicate himself to helping those still alive find their way to the light shop. Ms. Park suggests he go to the Samong apartment, hinting that someone there may need his help. As Sung heads toward the apartment, he encounters Yu Hui, Ju's mother. Mistaking her for one of the living, he tries to speak with her. However, Yu Hui, unable to talk due to her stuffed mouth, points toward the building ahead before silently continuing on her path. Yu Hui quickly arrives at the light shop and meets Jung. She hands him a locket, with Ju's name engraved on it, and tries to explain that Ju is alive and desperately needs her light. Jung, however, insists that each person must find their own light and suggests Yu Hui bring Ju to the shop. Frustrated, Yu Hui explains that Ju refuses to leave her room. Desperate, she reveals her true identity. She is Yu Hui, Jung's daughter. At first, Jung is taken aback, but as Yu Hui recounts their past and pleads with him, he realizes the truth. Overcome with emotion, he embraces her, and the memories flood back, how he traded his own life for Yu Hui's light to save her. Meanwhile, Ju grows distraught when she realizes her mother is missing. Venturing outside the building, she encounters Sung. Though she doesn't fully recognize him, Sung claims they've met before, leaving her confused. As a woman passes by without acknowledging either of them, Sung explains that she couldn't help because she couldn't see them. He suggests Ju might have experienced the same phenomenon. Ju recalls the past 2 days spent with her friends, how no one spoke to her or even acknowledged her presence. The painful realization dawns on her: she is no longer part of their world. The weight of this truth becomes too much for Ju to bear. Sung grows worried that he won't be able to guide her to the light shop. However, he informs her that her mother wanted her to visit the light shop and find her own light to return to life. This angers Ju, who doesn't want to be separated from her mother. Yu Hui returns with Ju's light bulb, but Ju bursts into tears, refusing to touch it. She tearfully tells her mother that she'd rather stay by her side forever. but Yu-Hui knows this isn't possible. In a heartbreaking moment, she forces Ju to touch the light bulb. Meanwhile, Sun-Hei shares one last, bittersweet hug with Ms. Park before departing for the light shop. The separation is painful, but Sun-Hei knows she must move forward. Arriving at the shop, she curiously looks around until she finds her light bulb. As she touches it, her consciousness begins to stir in the ICU, signaling her return to life. However, as Sun-Hei holds the light bulb, she hesitates. She asks Jung what would happen if she broke it. Her question intrigues Jung, who observes her closely. Sun-Hei, torn by her deep desire to stay with Ms. Park, makes a bold decision. She drops the bulb, shattering it into pieces. In the real world, Sun-Hei's vital signs fade, and she passes away. But in the afterlife, she returns to Ms. Park. Though her decision ends her life, it allows her to stay by her lover's side for eternity. At the same time, Ji-young leads Kim to the light shop. As they reach the entrance, Ji-young bids him farewell. Overcome with emotion, Kim hugs her tightly, reluctant to let go. Ji-young encourages him to enter the shop and find his light, no matter what. Inside the shop, Kim nervously searches until he notices a faintly flickering light bulb. He moves toward it, drawn by its glow. Outside, Ji-young sees a sudden burst of light emanating from the shop. Realizing what has happened, she rushes inside and learns that Kim's spirit has returned to his body in the human world. This realization fills her with mixed emotions, joy that Kim is alive but sadness at their separation. Back in the human world, Detective Sang encounters Hoon, the man he had been pursuing. Sang initially suspected Hoon of murdering an elderly man, but his time in the afterlife changed his perspective. Sang recalls seeing Hoon's eyes and realizing he wasn't an ordinary human. Hoon clarifies the misunderstanding, explaining that he didn't kill the old man. Instead, he fed the man his favorite dish moments before he passed away. Relieved but curious, Sang questions Hoon about his mysterious eyes, which resemble those of Jung from the light shop. Hoon reveals that he is a guide for wandering spirits, those who haven't yet found the afterlife. However, he admits that his strength is fading, and he can no longer fulfill his role. He suggests that Sang, who possesses the unique ability to see spirits, take over in his stead. To aid him, Hoon hands Sang a pair of sunglasses, a tool to manage his newfound responsibility. Meanwhile, a lost soul, a truck driver who died in the bridge crash, encounters Nurse Kwan. The truck driver, unaware of his death, had sought treatment at the hospital. Despite being able to see him, Kwan ignored his presence in the ICU, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. Frustrated and angry, the truck driver grows hostile, his resentment building as Kwan fails to respond. Just as the situation escalates, Detective Sang arrives, now embracing his new role as a guide. He intervenes to guide his lost soul toward the afterlife. After waking up from his coma, Kim starts experiencing strange and unexplainable phenomena. However, what troubles him most is his inability to remember his past life, including the fact that he once had a girlfriend, as the doctors claimed. The psychiatrist listens patiently before advising him to let go of his past and focus on building a new life. She suggests he get rid of any objects in his house that might tie him to memories he can't recall. On his way home, Kim's wheelchair suddenly malfunctions. Determined, he pushes it forward manually and unknowingly stops at the very spot where the accident occurred. Standing there, he takes out his phone and rereads Ji-young's final messages. Each word stirs a mix of pain and anger within him until, overwhelmed, he hurls the phone away in fury. When Kim finally returns home, he realizes he can't remember the door passcode. Frustrated, he tries several combinations but to no avail. Suddenly, the power goes out, plunging the gallery into darkness. Waving his hand to activate the motion sensors, he stops dead in his tracks. Ji-young's spirit stands before him, silent and ethereal. Meanwhile, Ju has begun a new chapter of her life, living with her father. Each morning, he drops her off at school, offering gentle encouragement. As Ju enters the school grounds, she encounters a peculiar and cheerful girl who immediately lights up upon seeing her. The girl excitedly insists that Ju become her friend, catching Ju off guard. This is the end of this story. I hope you had enjoyed it.